the back porch in the morning. The sun is just beautiful out here. Getting some fresh air with Gabby and Lucy. I have herbs all over my porch and the smell is wonderful out here. Get yourself a little inspiration every day. Get a little fresh air and it will get you in the mood for painting. It does for me. Right? Right? You hear those birdies? You hear them? Are they calling you? Hmm? So what inspires you? Nature inspires me. My little critters inspire me. I love the sunshine and the fresh air. But all kinds of things around me inspire me. Being outside today inspired me to paint a little watercolor of this scene. But even things around me, like a glass of wine that I had, I took a photo of it and I decided to paint it. A beautiful little scene from across the street where the cypress trees are, when it was fall colors on the trees, some of the only trees around that change color, and I decided I'd paint that. So what is it around your world that inspires you? Let's see if we can do most of this painting in one session, like a wet on wet. The very first thing I'm going to do, and it's very important, is decide where I want this first tree. There's lots of ways to do a watercolor. You could put the sky in, let it dry, come back, put in your light tones, let it dry, come back, put in your medium tones, let it dry, come back and put in your dark tones. But I paint my watercolors a little bit like I paint my other paintings whenever I can. Sometimes it's not possible. And I don't have a lot of patience, not when I'm trying to do a little sketch to see if a larger painting will work out. Sometimes I use these little watercolors like thumbnails. And other times, I'm just trying to remember a day that I had out in the field, something fun, something wonderful. So I might bring this with me as a plein air study. I can't wait another day to finish it. I have to finish it all out in the field. So when you're working in plein air, you have to find ways around that drying process. Watercolors dry fairly quickly unless you're soaking your paper. And you'll notice here I did not wet the paper ahead of time for just that reason. I do not want it bleeding. I want to just paint with it. I cannot completely key these shadows in until I get the rest of the colors in. So I put them in lightly to start with. But you see later they're not quite dark enough. I go over them a few times and add a little more blue to them. This is a very simple painting. Each layer I put on, I go darker. But because they're put on very dry, I can just go right over them. Because they're going to dry very quickly. This is a little photo that I took in a park up in Tarpon Springs. I'm always going to some park somewhere. Just gradually a little darker, a little warmer as we get up front where the pine needles are. Now you see I'm darkening those shadows. And I will probably work on those a few more times. Now you see me putting the sky in. I don't need a lot of sky. It's not a very dark sky. And there's a lot of clouds in the sky, so I just need a little blue here and there. I can go right over the trees. They're already dry, as long as I don't rub too much or make this too wet. I can always put sky holes in if I need to with a little more blue or a little more white. I left plenty of white in the painting, so hopefully I won't have to use gouache. If I really want detail in this, I could put a ton of gouache in, but I'm just going to do this in watercolor. Like I said, it's not a completed painting. It's just a sketch to give me a concept. I use the side of that brush a lot when I just want that raggedy look that the bushes have. Always I work all around my painting, never just one place at a time. Constantly moving around my painting. I do not complete one area and then move down to the next area. I try to complete the whole painting all at once, whenever possible. On my mind from the beginning of this painting, from the first stroke, is where is my focal point? What am I trying to say? Where is the light? The effect of the light is always on my mind. So in this watercolor, I need to leave enough light on the pathway to show the shadows from those trees to help lead you through the path. And that light reflecting back and forth, the shadows and the light up the path is the focal point. Not necessarily the trees, not necessarily the bushes, but the effect of the light in the painting. Which is why you see me going darker and darker. Until I finally get close enough to make an impression of a dark, shadowy woods with a light path. And then I stop because, again, I'm just going to overwork it if I keep messing with it. The whole charm is just in the illusion. If you step back from the painting, you think, oh, look at all of the detail. But when you get up close, you think, oh, look at that. It's all a facade. It's like a trick, an artistic trick. If you see someone you know from far away, before you can see the details of their face, you know it's them because your mind fills in the rest. Maybe you notice the stance that they have, the way they walk, the way they hold their purse, or the way their shoulders rounded. And your mind knows that's them. Even though you really aren't seeing very clearly, because they are still far away. That's the same thing in painting. You know this is a forest. You know there are lots of trees and bushes and leaves. You don't need everyone painted. Your mind will fill all that in if you are given some basic details. I don't know. Should I paint this in acrylic? It's possible. Do I think it would make a pretty painting? Probably. I like the way it turned out. I think it would be worth painting a bigger painting. Pine needles. I eventually sketch a few little twigs in on the ground here just to remind myself that they're there in case I decide to make this into a bigger painting. I want to remember that, yes, there are some broken branches and twigs up front. There they are. They look a little hokey, but it's okay. Looks like snakes on the ground. I could have put some gouache on them to lighten them up so you would know they were broken twigs, but like I said, I don't want to bother with the gouache in this painting. A few more twigs and vines. You can use your finger to lighten it up a little bit. My object here is not to amaze you with my talent, because yes, I could put in a ton more detail in this if I want to. And you'll think, wow, it really looks so much like a photograph. But I'm just trying to get a rendition of these woods, what they look like, what they feel like, the lightened pathway that's leading us through the woods. And that's all the detail I really want to put in this little sketch. Thanks for joining me, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it.